ECU?
R.
Do you bleed purple and gold?
Are you ready to hoist the colors?
Hoist the colors!
It's time for the most in-depth look into the world of ECU athletics. Welcome to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Watch the show live on Facebook
and at 943thegame.com. Here's Stephen Igo.
Welcome in. It is Thursday, June 4th. We will begin to talk some more Pirate football today. Of course, we'll hit on some baseball as well. Austin Irby, which we kind of mentioned yesterday, officially in the portal today. We said yesterday this was most likely coming. We'll touch on that towards the latter half of the show. We may get into the Hurricanes Game 2 of the Stanley Cup. How much of a must-win is it? Pretty big. We'll talk about that as well towards the end of the show. But a lot of ECU football talk today. It's been a while since we've had our State of the Room segment. We're going to continue that. Last time, probably a couple weeks ago at this point, we hit on the receivers, so now we're down to the tight end position for East Carolina. Coming out of spring, heading to the summer, we'll tell you about what to expect from the tight end group. We also are going to begin our opponent preview series with Mike Rodak from Bama 247. Of course, ECU will open its season in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium on September 5th, 93 days away. So in segment 2, we'll get a conversation with Mike Rodak. What to expect from the 2026 Crimson Tide as they welcome ECU to town for the season opener many, many days from now, but it'll be here before you know it. Philip Pilkington, he is back in the 94.3 The Game studios. Also, our chat open on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Philip, how you doing as we begin to talk some more football as the summer really gets underway?
Yeah, a little disappointing, I guess, for not previewing a super regional. I am relieved to not have to work Saturday and Sunday. Full disclosure, I'm not happy, but I am relieved. I'm excited. A lot of fun sports going on right now. This time of year, we're previewing football, full swing of MLB season. Little teaser for late in the show. A Pirate got promoted to Double-A earlier this morning. Got NBA, got NHL, got the French Open. So a lot of fun stuff going on.
A lot of stuff happening for sure, and never a dull moment. Maybe in July we'll find some dull times, but either way, we got a lot to get to. Let's just dive right into this position preview. That way we leave plenty of time for Mike Rodak and some discussion on the back half of the show for baseball, other sports as well. And the tight end position, I'll kind of give a overall synopsis. Philip and I will then bounce some conversation back and forth. We talked about it going into the spring. You're losing Javante Connor. You're losing Desirio Riles. Both those guys transferring, quote-unquote, up to Power 4 institutions. Riles going to Florida State. Connor going to Vanderbilt. And it's tough to replace that type of talent. There's no doubt about it. But I was encouraged what I saw in the spring. New offense. Jordan Davis obviously coming in with a new scheme, new system. One key thing about this room, though, and even though it is a brand new room in many ways, tight ends coach Hunter McKay comes back. Had some connections with Jordan Davis, this offensive staff, the offensive line coach, so some commonalities that ended up leading him to stay on staff. So at least you have a similar voice in the room, and that's especially important for the young guys returning. I'll get to that more in a minute. They brought in 2 key transfers, Ismail Smith-Flores, who had a really good year, UTRGV, a guy who had played mainly linebacker, defense at Nebraska before learning tight end at Rio Grande Valley, had a breakout year, comes back to the FBS level. Really good size. Up and down spring from what I saw. Still kind of learning the position, but I would say upside-wise, he's one of the best in the room, and I expect him to play. Can block, can run, big physical body. If I had to project a starting tight end today, it'd probably be Ismail Smith-Flores. Also, ECU brought in Cayman Reynolds, App State transfer, another older guy, a senior who had played a decent amount for the Mountaineers, had some familiarity with a few staff members, including Lance Ware, who used to coach him at App State. He missed the spring due to, I believe, a shoulder injury. Will be fully cleared for the fall, from my understanding. Hard to say exactly where he fits in, but as an older guy, I would think him and Flores are going to play. It's just a matter of how much. Then in the returning category, you bring back Mason Brown, basically a blocking tight end, 6'4", 270, big kid. Doesn't really catch the ball or run routes all that well, but he's going to block. He's going to play. He played basically every game last year on offense in that role, special teams as well. You also had 3 tight ends redshirt in 2025. Stephen Collier out of South Carolina, Cayman Reynolds, and also Caleb Morrow. Now, Morrow suffered a long-term knee injury. He's still rehabbing. Don't know if he'll be back this season. Maybe back at some point in the fall, but wouldn't expect him to play a ton as a result of that injury. Cayman Reynolds was also in that class. He's now listed as an offensive lineman on ECU's roster, so I guess the position changes happened there. And the big news out of the spring was Stephen Collier, who basically every time I was out at practice, or every time I was talking to somebody, his name kept being brought up. Man, he's making plays. Man, he looks like a receiver playing the tight end position. And again, not great size for a blocking tight end, listed at 6'2", 242. But he can run routes. He was a multi-sport athlete in high school, really good speed, natural pass catcher. I like Stephen Collier to play a lot this year. I just think he needs to get a little bit better at blocking so you're not just a complete tell every time he's on the field that you're going to throw the football. So what I have coming out of the spring, state of the room, Phillip, is Smith Flores going to play all-around tight end. Mason Brown going to play blocking tight end. Hamlet's probably going to play due to his experience. I need to see him in practice more, but he's played a lot. They brought him here to not sit the bench, so he's going to play. And then Stephen Collier, wouldn't be shocked if he leads this team in tight end snaps by the end of the season, but, of course, a lot has to happen for his maturity as a redshirt freshman to get that done. But those are my four guys I'm looking at to save the room coming out of the spring.
Yeah, I think the question mark, like you said, there is kind of Collier. It's like, we know the old saying, no block, no rock. However, we are living in a heavy 11 personnel time. We're living with an offense that has got some air raid tendencies to it, and an offense that will probably, when they do run the football, be able to run some inside zone off of a true 2x2 set where your tight end is lined up in, a normal slot role as opposed to being, an extension of the offensive line. So there will be ways to run the football with him on the field, I think, in the year 2026, just because of the type of football that is played right now. With that being said, though, like you said, it can't be to this point where you don't feel comfortable audibling, shifting him inside, and trusting him to block, especially when you've got, was it Ismail Smith? I can't remember which order.
Yes, Ismail Smith Flores.
Yeah, Ismail Smith Flores, who, is a bigger body, who's a guy who's played in the box most of his collegiate career. As you mentioned there, his time at Nebraska as a linebacker. When you have a guy like that who is a good enough athlete to go out there and make catches, but is also, a guy who can go be an extension of the offensive line, that's the guy I think you're going to give your nod to right now. But again, this style of offense would be the one where you could see a tight end maybe that really is just a fourth receiver out there, be able to succeed and be able to see the bulk of the snaps due to how the offense is set up.
And overall, just looking at North Texas the last few years under Eric Morris and Jordan Davis, a lot of 11 personnel, which means one back, one tight end, three receivers. I would expect that to be the primary setup. I do think you'll see some four receiver sets, maybe a lot of them, especially we've talked about all the slot receivers this offense has. And I mean, with Collier thrown in there, he's not a guy who's probably going to be playing on the perimeter either, except for very rare situations. So that gives you another option in the slot. And just kind of give you an idea of his talent. In high school, 39 career games, 2,300 all-purpose yards. He had 116 rushing yards, 1,700 receiving yards, 184 kickoff return, 376 punt return, and 103 yards tallied on interception return. So it's just a guy who can do it all, like a supreme athlete. And I just think, the reason he didn't end up at South Carolina or Clemson is because he's 6'2", and not – if he was 6'4", 6'5", Philip, he would have gone – straight to one of those schools. But, he kind of reminds me body-wise of Riles and probably a little slender, faster. So if you're looking for a comparison, I'd probably say that. Not as good as a blocker, maybe a little bit better route runner. So I'm just fascinated to see, if he's just that dynamic of a receiver, do you just forego the negative blocking and just throw him out there? I mean, I'm just really interested because I do feel like last year they got a little – obviously different offensive staff, but it was pretty obvious, when Mason Brown was in the game, they were just going to run the ball. They very rarely threw it. And, part of the thing with offensive, being an offensive, with your offensive mind, you just don't want to give away what you're doing. And at times it is nice to say, hey, we're going to line up and run it. There's nothing you do to stop it. But I just don't think this team's going to be built like that. So I'm just curious how they're going to handle the Collier X factor, so to speak. Because if he's the best passing, receiving tight end, that opens up a lot. But also you don't want to just give it away.
You don't. And the tough thing, too, Stephen, is you're not going to see a lot of man coverage in this conference. And the reason I bring that up is because if you were seeing man, a tight end like this would usually be shadowed by a box safety. And you could then line him up actually at the X or the Z and get one of those box safety, better run stopping, guys out of the box. And that could then allow you to run the football. So you could line him up at the X or the Z, obviously run pass plays, but then under those same formations, the run would be there because you'd be then pulling a guy out of the box. The tough thing is you see a lot of cover 3 in this league, and I just don't know, Steven, if the cover 3 side of it is going to be as vulnerable when he does line up outside to the run as if it would be if it was cover 0, which you see a lot more of in the NFL when you see these athletic type tight ends. You think of teams like the Chargers who run a lot of man defense when they see like the Chiefs with Travis Kelce and they have their box safety Derwin James go out there with Kelce. You're just not going to see that as much in this league, Steven. So I think that is part of the problem and one of the concerns and why right now you give the nod maybe to either one of those transfers who were coming in as possibly the starter at the given moment.
Last year, Philip, you had 28 catches from Desirio Rouse, 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 23 catches for 333 yards and 3 scores from Javante Connors. That's 51 catches for nearly 700 yards and 5 scores. Do you think this year's tight end room comes anywhere close to that, or is it just hard to, I just feel like that's a lot of production from your tight ends. In college. I mean, that seems like it'd be tough to replicate.
Yeah, I got to get off the spreadsheet, Steven. You're asking me over-under questions here in June. I wasn't ready.
It just popped into my mind as we sit here today.
A lot of it, Steven's going to come down to, I think, do you see more 10 personnel or do you see more 12 personnel? Right? You mentioned that there could be some 4 wide receiver sets, and if that's something that this offense feels like they can do successfully, naturally there's going to be less opportunities for the tight ends. But also with the athleticism of these tight ends and some of the air raid concepts that teams like to run, specifically the Y stick route can be ran out of a 2 tight end set where you do have both those tight ends lined up in the slot. If they feel though those big physical bodies, paired also with another thing being the mesh concept, the shallow mesh, as well as the Y shallow cross, 3 of your 5 main air raid concepts there, those could lead to more opportunities for the tight ends and then the overhits. So I know I'm beating around the bush here and kind of giving you word salad, not answering your question, but I think it's all going to come down to who's better at practice and whether they feel more comfortable out of 10 personnel or out of 12 personnel. We know the base is going to be 11, but what's kind of the different look they give? If we see more of the different look being 12, these are overs. If we see more of the different look being 10, these are under.
And the other factor is, depending on the quarterback, it feels like how much you throw to the tight end. Like, quarterbacks have different preferences, too. Does Emory Williams like throwing to the tight end more than Mitch Griffiths or vice versa? That's something that's hard to know because we just haven't seen enough of these guys. So there's your tight end look, a brief look, but a pretty good one as well. And, again, another room that I feel solid about. Again, you're losing a guy like Javante Connor, Desirio Rouse. It's going to be tough to replace, but I do like this group overall, even if the upside isn't there on the servers. All right, let's get a break in. We'll come back. We've got Mike Rodak from Bama 247. We'll visit with him and get an early look at ECU Alabama. That next on Hoist the Colors.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Healthwise Pharmacy rounds the bases with all of your infusion, retail, compounding, and medical equipment needs. Locally owned and operated by pharmacist Marcy Parker, Healthwise has grown to be your most trusted provider for infusion services. Currently providing in-home or on-site infusions in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Visit Healthwise Pharmacy at 615B South Memorial Drive or call 252-295-0059 to speak to a patient service representative to find the option that best suits your needs.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers does real burgers better than anybody. And don't forget about the cheese sticks, fresh salads, and more. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, burgers and sports at its best.
Go Pirates! Arg!
In this age of globalization, we've learned that bigger isn't always better. Ever tried to get phone help from a big corporation from a real person? Right. That's what's so nice about Phelps Chevrolet. After more than 50 years serving our community, Phelps remains family-owned and operated. Mike, Daryl, Wave, West, Alan, and Clay deliver hometown service and integrity, same as always. They share your experience, they share your values, and they are ready to help with any motoring need. Come get you one.
Daughtridge Gas and Oil has been your dependable propane supplier for 95 years. Their trained technicians can service and properly install all your propane and natural gas appliances. Plus, Daughtridge Gas and Oil is your backyard expert with fire pits, grills, smokers, and more, including quality outdoor furniture at their Greenville Patio and Hearth Shop at 1901 Charles Boulevard. Go by and see the knowledgeable staff at Daughtridge Gas and Oil for propane delivery or call 756-1345.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your
Every ECU fans one stop for all things ECU athletics.
This is Hoist the Colors with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Segment 2 here, Hoist the Colors. We talk ECU tight end, the state of the position room in segment 1, getting back to some football discussion, and we'll start our 2026 opponent preview segment now and take a look at the Alabama Crimson Tide. Mike Rodak from Bama 24/7 on the phone with us. Mike, first off, welcome to the show. And secondly, we're 93 days out, but hey, never too early to talk some football. Just what's the early buzz, early sense on this third year of the Kalen DeBoer era in Tuscaloosa as Alabama looks for probably another playoff run?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I think it's it's mixed. I think because the results of the first two seasons have been mixed, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of peaks and valleys. I think people are still kind of getting used to the new normal of not being the Nick Saban era, where it's like, all right, are we going to go 14-0 or 15-0 this year? It's like it's different. College football's changed, Alabama's changed, and there's more uncertainty going into each season. And I think there's still a lot of, like I said, they were number one in the country, 2 years ago, coming off of that Georgia game. And last year they go to Georgia and they beat Georgia at Georgia, which nobody's done in years. But then you had the Florida State loss. You had the Oklahoma loss last year. You had the Georgia loss in the SEC championship game. You had the Indiana loss, but that was very embarrassing and very one-sided. So you've kind of gotten both ends of it, and there's a lot more volatility. There's a lot more variability in kind of what these seasons could be for Alabama. And so I think it's just a lot of kind of waiting and seeing what happens and seeing how the team looks. And I think there's optimism that there's still a lot of talent on this roster, because there is. And I think there's a lot of optimism about the quarterback position in particular because of what they have there. But there's also a realization from fans that you're probably going to lose a few games. And like I said, 10 years ago, that wasn't really part of their thinking. It was, we're going to go undefeated, we're going to win a national championship. That was the standard every single year. And that's changed a little bit. So that's, I think, been an adjustment for a lot of fans.
Yeah, you kind of hit on it there, and Kalen DeBoer obviously filling almost impossible shoes to fill following Nick Saban. And just from the outside looking in, Mike, like when he got that huge contract extension in April, I scratched my head a little bit. I guess he was mentioned for some other jobs, but what was the reaction of the Bama fans? Huge extension, obviously a lot of money there to that news. And if he has another season where they miss the playoffs, like, is he going to be, I don't want to say the hot seat, but at least some more heat on him at least?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very lukewarm reaction. I think there was a lot of debate among fans on whether it should have happened. And I think the key detail that is still a little bit murky is when exactly it was agreed upon, because there was a lot of talk. You remember Alabama made the playoffs last year. They went on the road to Oklahoma. They went down. We talk about peaks and valleys. They went down 17-0 in that game, and they came back and won. And coming out of that game, there was talk of, a contract extension. And that was also around the time when DeBoer's name was being mentioned a lot with Michigan. So it's quite possible that there was some level of agreement, back then. And then the Indiana game happens, and all of a sudden, I don't know if it would have made a whole lot of sense for Alabama to announce a contract extension for Kalen DeBoer coming out of the Rose Bowl. And it's, when exactly everything got buttoned up with the new deal, I think is still a little bit unclear, but it was officially approved in April. So what that does is, again, it kind of depends on who you ask in terms of like how much of a chance there was that he was going to leave. Nick Saban came out and basically said, if you didn't give him a contract extension, he would have gone to Michigan. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I don't know if it's 0% true either. And so by giving him the extension, you're keeping him in the building. But what you're also doing is adding to the potential buyout. If there is a situation, like you said, where you have a really bad season, you have another disappointing end to it, whatever the case may be, and there's legitimate pressure, from Alabama fans, the wealthy Alabama fans in particular, to make a move. And if that happens, then the extension you just gave him means you'd have to pay him like a $70 million buyout or close to it. Whereas if there was not an extension, the number is probably closer to 45, 50 million. So that's a big difference. And that's probably prohibitive for getting rid of a coach after this year. So if you're asking me, I think it's a very strong possibility, a very strong chance that he's coaching Alabama into 2027, regardless of what happens this year.
Risen with Mike Rodak, who covers Alabama for 24/7 Sports, Bama 24/7. Obviously, Ty Simpson moving on to the NFL, Mike, and they've got an older guy in Austin Mack coming back, but I've heard a lot of promising things about Keelan Russell with the quarterback competition. So just the early read on that, what are you hearing in Bama on that?
Yeah, it's kind of the classic quarterback competition where you have an older veteran. And Austin, the funny thing is about Austin Mack is that he's not technically old. He's a fourth-year player, but he's actually only 19 years old, which is kind of weird because he came in, I think, as a 16-year-old freshman at Washington, turned 17 during his freshman year, and then transferred to Alabama with DeBoer. But he's the older, in terms of experienced players. This is his fourth year in the system. His ceiling is probably a little bit lower than Keelan Russell, whereas Russell's kind of that younger, higher ceiling, higher potential player. And so, we've kind of seen that play out in quarterback competitions, across college football and even in the NFL. Like, it's a matter of how quickly does that younger, higher upside quarterback come along to a point where you feel comfortable playing him and, not having the big mistakes? Or do you stick with the guy that you trust a little bit more because he's, he has more under his belt? So that's kind of where they're at. I think Austin Mack is probably a slight favorite to start because of that experience and everything he's done in this system in practice. But Keelan Russell is a excellent talent. I mean, he's the highest rated recruit to sign with Alabama in the history of 24/7 Sports' database. And we saw flashes of that last year. Really quick release, a lot of mobility, but definitely a pass-first quarterback. And if he can kind of put it all together these next couple months, and he definitely made strides this spring, then I can also see him overtaking Austin Mack and starting week 1. I think it's very much an open question as we sit here in June, who is going to start that game on September 5th.
I want to ask you about the whole offense in a minute, just in terms of, kind of the surrounding supporting cast. But, Ryan Williams in particular, to start off with, Mike, like everybody saw his catch versus Georgia when he was a freshman, and like he was getting some Heisman buzz going into last year as a dark horse. And, for whatever reason, like just didn't have the sophomore season he wanted or many expected. What do you think kind of held him back? And do you expect a big season as a junior? What's your interpretation of Ryan Williams at this point?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to see the fall off for him. Those first 4 or 5 games when he was a 17-year-old freshman, it wasn't even just the Georgia game. That was kind of the big one where everybody was watching and all that, made those great catches. But those first 5 games, I think he had 6 touchdowns and 100 yards in 3 of them maybe. So really fast start. Even that second half of his freshman season, he really started to slow down in terms of the production. And then last year it was combination of things. There were some injuries. He did have a concussion he suffered in the opening game against Florida State. He had kind of a nagging leg injury after that. And there's definitely a confidence issue because he was dropping passes. That was his biggest problem last year. His drop rate was one of the highest in the country. Dropped that one at Georgia where he was wide open down the middle. Would have been a touchdown. And that was, very high profile play. And he's an 18-year-old. I think it probably got in his head a little bit. And just trying to kind of even out that psychological part of it, I think has been a big emphasis for them, this offseason. And he actually changed his name. He's now Ryan Coleman Williams. He changed his jersey number. He's number 1 now. So there's kind of this whole idea of a fresh start that he's tried to kind of put forth. And at the end of the day, I think he needs to get a little bit bigger. He's a little bit light. He's a little bit small to be able to kind of make those contested catches and, kind of hold up, through an SEC schedule. So that's been an emphasis as well. But, I think there's optimism that he can kind of turn the corner and get back to where he was early on as a freshman, but still a lot of questions with him as well.
And then I'm sure talent-wise across the board, we'll get into the defense later, but I'm assuming pretty loaded on talent, especially the receiver position. We know Alabama turns out NFL receivers, and I do know that they went after Hollywood Smothers, who East Carolina is very familiar with. I think he ended up going elsewhere, but how's the rest of the offense coming along?
Yeah, that was kind of a big story around here because he was committed to Alabama out of the portal from NC State and then kind of reneged on that and went to Texas instead. And it was something that kind of got under people's skin because it was, example of kind of money being thrown at a guy and, obviously the frustrations people have with that. So, the running back position is a little bit more uncertain because of that. They have Daniel Hill coming back, who was, by the end of last season, their lead back. He's a much bigger, bruising guy, but probably not the top-end speed. I think the big question is, that, they have another 5-star freshman coming in, E.J. Crowell, who's the number 1 rated, freshman running back, and he got hurt in the spring, so we didn't see very much of him at all. But a lot of optimism that he can come in and make a big impact right away. So we'll have to see if he plays week 1 and how much he plays. But, the offensive line is going to be the big story about this team because it was a problem last year, and they've lost good players off of it. Caden Proctor was a first-round pick. Parker Brailsford went to the draft as well. They had 3 other guys who graduated. So their offensive line is very inexperienced. They've tried to bring in some players through the portal that are kind of gambles. They're not proven players necessarily. And that's a big question mark. And if there's an area where East Carolina is potentially going to exploit Alabama, it would be their offensive line. So that's kind of the issue for them. But a lot of talent at receiver outside of Ryan Williams. I mean, Latsier Brooks had a great freshman year last year. Noah Rogers, the transfer from NC State, got hurt in the spring, so he's probably going to be out most of the year. But they do like a couple of their younger receivers as well. Sedarian Morgan, a 5-star, and Derek Meadows as well.
Defensively, Kane Womack known as one of the better minds in college football on that side of the ball. And just doing my research, Mike, it appears their secondary pretty loaded for 2026. How is that side of the ball shaping up?
Yeah, that's kind of the whole roster in general, not just the defense. I think that's the position group they feel the best about is the secondary. They have 2 safeties coming back who stayed out of the draft, and Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb, who are both, veteran, experienced guys. 2 very elite level talents at corner. Xavier Brown, who is probably a first-round pick next year, and then Dijon Lee, who will be a sophomore, who's also a 5-star. So they feel great about the secondary. I think the big area of concern coming out of that Rose Bowl was the front seven. They got run over by Indiana in their offensive line, and really a lot of turnover along the front seven. The only guy who's really back is Yonze Pierre, who is potentially dangerous as a pass rusher off the edge. But Alabama went out in the portal. They got Devin Tompkins, a defensive lineman from USC. They got Terrence Green, a defensive tackle from Oregon. They got Caleb Woodson, a linebacker from Virginia Tech. All those guys are fourth and fifth year guys. It's kind of where they spent their money in the portal, was trying to improve their front seven and get bigger along the front seven, and they feel like they did. Obviously, this is going to be the first test, week one, to see how that all fits together, but it's almost a whole brand new front seven for Alabama, coming off of a very kind of un-Alabama-like performance in the Rose Bowl, where, again, you're kind of used to Alabama being big and stout and dominant up front, and they just weren't. And we'll have to see if the new guys they brought in are able to do that.
Original Mike Rodak from Bama 247. A few more things for him. We'll get him out of here. And our opponent preview. So 93 days away, Mike, from ECU, Alabama. And look, Pirates are going to be a heavy underdog. I think 26-point favorite is Alabama at last check, early line. But clearly Bama will expect to win the game. I think they're paying ECU around $1.5 million. But Pirates are 14-5 over the last 2 years under Blake Harrell and have beaten NC State and Pittsburgh. So I guess, like, from Bama's point of view, is it at least a little bit of a test in the opener versus playing maybe, an FCS school, a lower tier, CUSA school or something like that? Just the perception of East Carolina heading into this opener.
Yeah, I think fans kind of see it as just another, kind of tomato can, if you will, because it's a G5 now G6 school. But I think the coaching staff, and I'm sure once Kalen DeBoer starts talking about this more, they're probably going to emphasize kind of the experience that East Carolina has on its roster. And, you have a lot of fifth, sixth-year guys on that roster that have played a lot of college football, that are transfers, that have come from higher levels of competition. So, it's not necessarily the classic group of five versus Alabama game as it would have been years ago. Like, this is a different day and age. This is an East Carolina team that's going to be older and experienced. And you guys would know better than me, but, potentially a very experienced quarterback, or at least a guy who's older, if Mitch Griffis starts. So I think that's probably going to be their emphasis. And whether or not they can get players to kind of buy into that is probably the question, because that's been an issue for Alabama. The last couple of years, you go back to after that Georgia win, when they beat Georgia 2 years ago, the very next week they went up to Vandy. I don't think they respected Vandy. That was clear, and they lost to Vandy. So I think Kalen DeBoer needs to do a better job of making sure players are respecting the opponents week in and week out. And I think that's, obviously going to be part of his message going into this game, is you need to pay respects to what East Carolina has done through the portal and kind of building their roster with a lot of guys who have been around football for a while.
It'll be a noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central start, Mike. I've talked to a lot of ECU fans making the trip, first time experiencing Bryant-Denny Stadium. Any advice on how to handle the trip, whether it be game day traffic, places to check out around Tuscaloosa? Just what should Pirate fans expect who are going there for the first time?
I would expect a lot of Alabama fans who are a little bit mad, I would say, about the weather and having a noon kickoff in early September. That's generally something that fans don't like around here because it's hot. And so I would expect to, obviously there's a chance it could be perfectly fine weather, but early September in Alabama, you're very well talking into the 90s, and it still could be very humid. So if I was an East Carolina fan, I would certainly be expecting very hot conditions. If you're sitting in the bleachers in the sun, it's going to be even worse. And because of that, I'm not even sure the crowd will be completely full for Alabama. I think a lot of people were just kind of turned off by the idea of sitting up there and kind of watching this game in the middle of the day at that time of year. So that's kind of the number one thing, and make sure you hydrate and all that. But I think people will have fun, in Tuscaloosa. I think it's still, everybody can talk about how college football has changed and all that, and it's kind of like the pros, but it's still a college town. I think it's still obviously a state and a city that is all about college football. It's the number one thing. It always will be. And I think people will have a lot of, fun wherever they go. I mean, there's the Strip, there's everywhere in Tuscaloosa. So, it's hard to go wrong on a college football Saturday there.
Final thing for you, Mike, and this is more of a personal question as a fellow journalist. Obviously saw you cover the Patriots for a long time. And so you've covered Bill Belichick and Nick Saban as head coaches on your beat. So what tell me about those experiences. And obviously you've been around some legendary coaches, getting to know them as people, but also trying to do your job and getting to know them as coaches. Like, how do you describe that as a journalist and being a part of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've been asked it before. I think there's this pretty small club. I think it's me and Ian Rappaport actually used to cover Alabama before he went up, and he covered the Patriots, and then he went at the NFL Network. So it's not too many of us who have done both. And they're definitely different guys. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And obviously the game, or the NFL versus college is different, but I actually enjoyed covering Saban more because he said more. Like, he had kind of these lessons and these stories and these kind of just, there was more to kind of work with him. Bill was just kind of Bill. Like, you weren't going to get very much. You were going to get very few words. There was really no personal interaction. That's just kind of his method, and it worked for him for the longest time. Saban is different. And it's not to say like you're buddy with Saban, but like, I think he was willing to work with you a little bit more. And it's interesting too, because he's still, like, he's on the Pat McAfee show every week during the season, and he's on College Game Day. So I'm actually sitting there and watching Nick Saban still for a decent amount of time every week, and I write about what he says. And to be honest, a lot more people read what Nick Saban has to say than what they read about, Caitlin DeBoer, and what he has to say about a game. So it's interesting to kind of see how, fans around here still kind of worship Saban, and kind of hang on every word that he says. And I don't know if fans in New England do the same thing with Belichick. I think there's just a different culture, but two different guys, I think, is kind of, despite kind of their history and their shared, heritage, if you will, like, it's two completely different personalities between those two guys.
Makes sense for sure. Mike Rodak, great stuff, man, from Bama 24/7. We appreciate the time, the insight, and I'm sure we'll be hitting each other up closer to kickoff in September. But thanks so much for the time, man.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Mike Rodak from Bama 247. Check out their work on our Alabama 24/7 sports websites. And again, 93 days away from kickoff, Pirates and Crimson Tide. All right, let's get a break in. We'll come back. We'll talk about the news of Austin Irby officially hitting the portal. Also hit on some more items in segment 3. That's on the way. Hoist the Colors on a Thursday.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human. About creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leyva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Acre Station Meat Farm, along with Lane Angus Beef, bring you Farm to Fork Beef.
Stock your freezers now with affordable beef boxes, just in time for the grilling season.
Farm to Fork Beef brings quality local beef to your family. From your traditional butcher shop, Acre Station Meat Farm. Come on down to Acre Station Meat Farm and find out why we're #1 in fresh cuts and friendly service.
Acre Station Meat Farm, Highway 32 North, Pinetown.
In Eastern North Carolina, people appreciate things that are straightforward, honest, and dependable. For For decades, our team has focused on cutting through insurance complexity for the communities we serve. And now, we're bringing that same mindset to our name. We're Flatlands Insurance Group, a simpler name that reflects the same local team, the same values, and the same commitment to the great communities we feel blessed to be a part of. Flatlands Insurance Group, your whole world is covered.
Make every day electric on the Kawasaki Electro 20 electric balance bike. Maximize the fun with long run times, impressive top speed, and Kawasaki build quality. Easy adjustability and smooth handling make everyday riding more enjoyable. And the standard MTB type tires provide off-pavement capability. The Kawasaki Electro 20 is the electric balance bike that's built to rip. Go to Ron Ayers Motorsports, Memorial Drive north of the airport, Greenville.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's cut in color. And let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
Hoist the sail!
Climb aboard as we set sail and hoist the colors.
Ahoy, me hearties! Back to Steve and Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors, segment 3 here. We just had our Alabama opponent preview with Mike Rodak from Bama 247. Good stuff there. And we'll circle back next week. I think we're going to have App State on the docket, Old Dominion as well. We'll try to find someone to preview the Pirates' FCS opponent as well. So we'll try to knock those out next week as we'll continue on our opponent previews and go through June before our summer hiatus. All right, Philip Pilkington, he's back in the 94.3 The Game studios. Philip, we discussed this yesterday that it was likely coming, but it is official now. Austin Irby enters the transfer portal. Did we get a Carlos Hakame? Was he already in the portal as of yesterday? That
yes
happened as well.
He was, because James talked a lot about it.
That's right. Yep, Hakame. So now your full list: Austin Irby, Carlos Hakame, Jackson DiLorenzo, Dawson Neal, Michael Kalinich, Blade Carver, Matthew Lashley. And haven't heard of, there probably will be some others, but I don't get the sense that any are imminent. Just some more background on the Irby situation is I talked to some people in his camp, also ECU's camp. I think initially he wanted to come back. Now, he also wanted to play third base. He actually came in out of high school as a third baseman. Had never really played first base before. Colby Wallace was at third. He learns first base. He does well there. Clearly, he sticks there the past 2 seasons. But I think his goal to improve his stock going into his draft-eligible year was to play third base. He worked some in third base in the fall. I think the plan was Colby has a big year. He probably goes pro, and then Austin slides over to third base or at least gets a look there. But with Colby probably not having the highest draft stock right now, I just don't know if there was a spot for him at third base. And I don't know if there was a guaranteed spot for him at first base with the production he put up last year. Now, also digging deeper into it, Irby did fight through a hand injury a lot of last season, and it was discovered per my sources that he had a handmade injury as well in one of his hands that impacted his swing, and he'll likely have to have a procedure to fix that. So how much did that impact his offensive production? Probably at least a good bit. And I think that's probably a role and an explanation for why we saw the offensive numbers slide back. Now, was it the only reason? I can't say. I don't know the particulars of the injury. I'm sure some of it was mental as well, given the increased expectations. But I just think a fresh start for both sides is probably the right thing here. And I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again, I'm pulling for Austin Irby. And I think for ECU, this opens up the possibility to either, A, develop the next first baseman from within your program, or go get a corner outfielder, corner infielder, and stick at first base that can hit. You just need more production from your first baseman. Now, maybe a healthy Austin Irby gives you that in 2027, but at this point, Philip, I just feel like maybe this is a time where the transfer portal is a good thing, because I think it gives both sides a fresh start. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if Austin Irby has a really good season at another stop next season.
Yeah, we wish him the best. Like I said, this is one of those marriages you hope would have worked a little better. I think everybody is understanding, kind of like you mentioned there, that, just it's time probably for both parties to move on. As for the thing here, Steven, was it us talking about it on the show yesterday, or was I talking about with some friends last night? Like, what if, maybe it was James that said it, what if Davin Whitaker learned to play first base? Just solely because you want to keep that bat in the lineup. He's not extremely fast. He takes good paths. However, you're obviously having Grady Linehan. Now, with that being said, Burris can play the outfield. Other than that, not a whole lot of returners out there. But sometimes it's easier to find outfielders than it is first baseman. He hits the ball like a first baseman. If it's one of those things where the outfield becomes very stacked, there are some, I think there were a couple guys that redshirted this year that were actually profiles, decent outfielders, got a couple coming in. Like, if you think that Davin Whitaker is a guy you could move over there, I mean, we saw Carter Cunningham move over there and be successful. Obviously, he's back in the outfield now in what is now Double-A ball as of this morning, not just High A. So congrats to Carter. But, guys can move to first base. First base can be learned. It's tough, but if you can play baseball at a level, then you can learn to play first base. And so that's one of the guys I think if anyone internal is moved over to first base. That's my guess, just because I think better chance of moving him than, say, a Braxton Tram. Or, I mean, I guess Colby can do it, and then Braxton can play third as well. So there's that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you can learn first base as opposed to learning, third base or something like that. I mean, it's still not as easy as it seems.
Yeah, but if you don't have the arm to play third, you don't have the arm to play third. Like, first, I feel like it's one of those, there's no specific tools that, like, well, I wasn't born with it. I mean, they're in hand-eye coordination, but, D1 athlete if you can't catch the ball.
For sure. And, I mean, corner, outfield, first base, typically there's a reason that's your bat first position more so than a premium defensive position. And, you did redshirt Luke Craddock as well, who I understand, power hitting right-handed guy who would profile as a first baseman too, but again, unproven. Somebody in the comments asked, should we look for a Colby Thorndike reunion? He entered the portal as well. I'm going to say, unless you just want to make a trade for basically the same guy, Philip, here's Colby Thorndike. His numbers this year, 239, 9 doubles, 6 homers, 20 RBIs. 25 strikeouts, 9 walks, 307 on base percentage. That is not great. OPS, a little higher than Austin due to the slugging, but not much higher. And I would say a solid first baseman, as opposed to his freshman year when he hit 303 with 18 doubles, 4 homers, and 48 RBI. Played a big role in leading him to Omaha. But I feel like this is almost the same situation. Sophomore slump for both Thorndike and Irby. I mean, maybe a change of scenery would be the answer, but I just think you go in a different direction.
I don't think that marriage ended as well as the Irby ECU marriage. I don't see that happening. Just, I think there might be a little bad blood there.
Yeah. I just find it hard to believe. All right, a couple of Pirate notes. Happy birthday, Jaquan McMillan, I'm seeing.
There you go.
ECU legend. Broncos legend as well. So happy birthday to Jaquan. Also, you mentioned it, Carter Cunningham called up to Double-A. Age 25 season, has had a really nice start at High A with Vancouver. Over 223 plate appearances. Phillip was hitting 250, but the big number here, 10 home runs, 11 doubles, 36 RBI, and hitting for a lot more power. 897 OPS, that'll 100% play. Now, age is against him, 25 being promoted to Double-A. He was on average 2.5 years older than everybody around him at High A. So that's the thing counting against him, but it does sound like he's hitting for more power, which the Blue Jays asked him to do. So big news here, at least for Carter's career.
Yeah, I think so. The strikeout number's a little higher than you want, but when you're asking a guy to hit for more power, that's going to happen. The on-base percentage is really good, and big thanks to 35 walks on the year. So he's actually been on base more than one time per game on average. That's huge. Steven, the tough thing is 25. Like you said, that's not a great age to only be at Double-A. But every minor league system seems to have one guy that ends up making it to Triple-A, gets paid whatever they get paid now, $80,000, $100,000. that the team really likes. He's a good clubhouse guy, and he ends up being a career minor leaguer and is able to make a normal middle-class wage playing minor league baseball till he's like 35. And then he does have to go join the workforce because he was playing minor league baseball. It's not like he can retire at 35. But you kind of wonder with a guy like Carter Cunningham, with an attitude like Carter Cunningham, with a character like Carter Cunningham, could this be, hey, we're going to slow path him up. He's going to be a great mentor for young guys coming up through our system. We're going to leave him, and he's going to one day make AAA, and he's going to hang out there for a decade. I don't know. I could see that happening.
And how many guys have we seen go around their way and then by injury or what other factors, age 28, 29, they just get that call to the big leagues because, hey, we need a left-handed bat to go play for a week. I mean,
yeah.
So all he can do is just keep producing and get a shot. So happy for Carter. We know he played college baseball for a while, but also if you look at his early pro numbers to now, he's clearly bought into whatever the Blue Jays have asked him to do and is improving. And that's all you can do. He's giving himself a shot. He's heading AA. All right, let's get a final break in. We'll come back. Some big news in the professional ranks as obviously NBA Game 1 last night. The Knicks win Game 1. We'll talk about that. And also NHL. Can the Hurricanes bounce back? We'll touch on that to close the show after this.
The power of savings is yours at Greenville Toyota with powerful deals on our huge selection of new Toyotas, like a Camry, $229 a month, or the all-new RAV4, $279. Don't miss the power of savings at Greenville Toyota.
In Eastern North Carolina, hard work matters, and it always has. At Flatlands Insurance Group, we've been showing up for our neighbors since 1963, helping families and business owners navigate change, weather tough seasons, and keep moving forward. Decades later, our purpose hasn't changed: to help protect what you've poured your time and energy to, from your home to your health to whatever comes next. Flatlands Insurance Group, your whole world covered.
Need cash for a vacation? National Finance Company is here to help. For over 50 years, National Finance Company has been the small loan specialist with loans from $1,000 to $5,000 with low payments to meet your budget. We're in the business of getting you the cash you need today. Apply online for a loan at one of our convenient branch offices and get your money as fast as today. It's easy. Get the vacation cash you need. For extra cash, visit nfcmoney.com.
Your future is full of possibilities, and Pitt Community College can help you explore every option. You can earn a degree, learn a trade, transfer to a university, or launch a new career. We offer the support you need to succeed with flexible schedules, affordable tuition, and programs designed for the real world. Your path, your future, your college. Pitt Community College. Register now.
Visit Larry's Steakhouse for a tender, hand-cut certified Angus ribeye. Other entrees include perfectly seasoned pork chops, chicken or seafood favorites like shrimp, tuna, and salmon. Complement your meal with Larry's fresh 20-plus item salad bar, or enjoy it as an all-you-can-eat entree. Daily rotating favorites include meatloaf, chicken pastry, hamburger steak, spaghetti, pork chops, and more, all complemented with your favorite country sides. Whether it's for lunch, dinner, or our Sunday brunch, remember to support and eat local. Larry's Steakhouse.
The hunting and fishing event of the summer comes to the Greenville Convention Center, July 11th and 12th, bringing together the best hunting and fishing vendors, outfitters, and fishing experts, all under one roof. Special free events, including a mountain trout pond, indoor archery range, offshore fishing experience, interactive duck blind, and free seminars. Don't miss it. The Mid-Atlantic Hunting and Fishing Expo is July 11th and 12th.
With new Toyota trucks from $259 a month, you've got the power of savings at Greenville Toyota. Drive Tacoma's $259 a month or Tundra's only $399 a month at Greenville Toyota, where our volume saves you money.
Like all pirates, Stephen Igo is loyal and bold.
He may also have a touch of scurvy.
Back to Hoist the Colors on 94.3 The Game.
All right, limited time remaining, but I did want to give a shout-out. We mentioned Jaquan McMillan's birthday today. It's also Kevin Cozart's. He's in the chat today. Happy birthday to Kevin.
Happy birthday, Kevin.
Appreciate you watching along. All right, so Canes tonight, must-win situation, right, Philip? They got to get this done.
They do. Yeah. It's going to be tough to climb out of an 0-2 hole. The big thing, though, I think, is correcting the mistakes. Look, that was the first time they had to play defense, like you mentioned yesterday, beyond their own goal line, really probably since the last week of the regular season. And there was a couple mishaps that are very glaring. I think they're very easy to fix. Rod Burnhamore's a great coach. They're going to figure it out. They're going to make the adjustments. They'll come back. I think they get the win tonight.
I think so, too, and hoping for our buddy Wags and the real Caniacs that they do. Crazy game in the association, game one of the finals. We had a fan come onto the court to take a selfie. He's been given a lifetime ban, by the way. I'm reading now. But also Jalen Brunson with an absolute insane shot to basically clinch it. And the Knicks, how about the Knicks fans taking over in San Antonio? That place was loud, Philip, anytime they hit a shot down the stretch. So Knicks fans everywhere are coming out of the woodworks.
Spike Lee, Tracy Morgan, Ben Stiller, man, everybody was there.
It's insane, man. So Knicks take a 1-0 series lead. Similar situation. I would expect the Spurs to respond in Game 2. Wemby says he's not worried, but I'm honestly expecting a classic series here, man. I'm not going to watch this thing from start to finish, but every fourth quarter it's close. So I'm tuning in because I think there's some fascinating matchups with Knicks Spurs. All right, so that will be tomorrow. Again, Game 2 of Canes in Vegas tonight. And we'll have the reaction to that on Friday. Bobby Harward will join us. He wasn't able to join us last week due to the regional. We'll make our super regional picks tomorrow for all 8 supers. Looking forward to that. We'll discuss the weekend. Probably talk some Pirate football as well. We'll see you on Friday, 12 noon. Thanks to Philip and Mike Rodak.